Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to end up drawing a trout, and it will look something like this when we're finished. Okay, it'll look a little bit like that. But we're going to use that rectangle, and the purpose of this rectangle here is to give us how tall we want our trout from the back to the belly, how long we want it, because we're going to put the head in front of it and the tail behind it, so that'll make it fit on the paper. This kind of gives us a road map of what we're going to do with it. You wouldn't try drawing this trout with a circle. If you did an oval, it would be a really long, skinny oval that'd come around. That wouldn't necessarily look right either. It's not going to be a triangle. A rectangle is probably our best route for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw one that is how we want it, and then I'm going to draw one that not so much. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start right here at this juncture where this line and this line come together, and I'm going to take a line and barely go above, and I'm going to bow it over and then bring it right down under this corner. So watch what I do. I'm going to go very lightly. Notice I'm not very, very far at all from that original line. As I get down here, I'm going to darken this in a little bit so you can see it better. Whoops. That's why I draw it light, so I can fix it. Okay, it's not very far above the line. So when you're doing this, don't do this. Okay, see the difference there? This is way above the line. This is barely above the line. We're just bowing it out and then gradually coming down here, not just going all of a sudden, whoop, it gradually comes down. So go ahead and draw that line. If I get going too quick, let me know. Raise your hand, tell me something so I don't get way far ahead of you. Hopefully nobody's struggling too bad with that. Basically, you're just taking a straight line and putting a slight bend in it. We had so much fun doing that one that we're going to come down here. We're going to do the same thing down here. I'll start on this end because I want this and this one to look basically the same. So I'm going to come right here. And so if I turn it this way, it looks kind of like a bottleneck right here, like we're creating a bottle. And then I'm going to bow this slightly outside, just like I did on top. Bring it all the way over, barely coming outside that line, and bringing it back to that juncture. So when I hold it up this way, you see how that looks like a bottle or a vase? I'm not going to draw this one quite as dark because I got to, well, I'm going to do a little bit, but I do have to add some fins and stuff to it, so I don't want to get too crazy dark on it just yet. But now basically I have my body shape on there. If I went too far below this line or too far above, it's going to be a really, really fat looking short fish. That's why it's important that we don't get too far above or below. All right, hopefully everybody's got that. Now is where it's going to get slightly trickier, but not a lot. I'm going to follow this line that I had here, and I'm going to stay on that same course. It's going down slightly. And I'm going to bring it a little over halfway across this. So it's not way far down here, just a little. Now from the bottom, I'm going to bring another line that comes up towards it, but then I stop and it's going to be shorter. It's close, but not quite. It's shorter. So if I lay my pencil on there, you can see that this line is slightly longer, that one's slightly shorter. But they're kind of like they're going to come together eventually. We're just leaving a little break in it. This is where it gets a little tricky. Whoever's whistling, stop it, so it does not come on the video. Now I'm going to draw the next part, and I want you to just watch for a second while I draw it, and then I'm going to show you what not to do. We got to try to create this part where it comes around and then goes down. So what I'm going to do is I am going to round this off right here, just like that, putting like a little J hook right there, just rounding it off. Then I'm going to come basically level like that, comes around, gets level, and then it angles back and down at a hard diagonal like this, and then hooks back around. Now before you do that, here's what you want to try to avoid, because this is the problem we end up with a lot. A lot of kids will come down there and they'll do that just fine, but then they do this on here. Okay, you see the difference? It's not a little skinny nose, okay? It's not a little pointy nose. It's fairly wide from here to here. Don't put a little skinny nose and then a little skinny lip on it. Or the other problem is you come down here and goes, oh, he said don't put a skinny lip. And then you put a gigantic lip on it, okay? We don't want that. It should look like it fits on the face, okay? Trying to avoid this. So if yours ends up looking anything like that, you might have to do a little redrawing. Okay, once you have that, we're just going to bring this line, I think we'll do this one a closed mouth instead of open. We're just going to bring that right up there below that lip and connect it up. And I want to see an ever so slight overhang right there. Just a little tiny overhang of the upper lip. So you don't want to come around here and go like this, okay? Our angles are all wrong. We got to put the bottom on our fish. This fish needs to go on a diet right here. Okay? The other one's doing okay. If anybody had a problem with that, can't get the angles right, can't get it to work, bring it to me real quick, we'll fix it. But if you're doing all right, wonderful. If not, don't sit there and flounder if you don't have to. No pun intended. Okay, is everybody to this point of completion? Does anybody need a little more time to get to this point of completion? I don't see any hands, so we're going to move on. So we're going to move down here to the tail end. I'm going to bring this out just a little further. And then I'm going to bring a line that goes a diagonal and comes up over to here. It's going to cross this line, and then it's going to go almost to the edge of my paper. And when I bring it up, I just put a little curve at the end. Then I'm going to come down here and do the same thing, basically the same angle. When I get almost to the end, I'm going to put a little curve, just like that. So I got one on top and one on bottom. Then let's put a very light line that's straight down from this one to this one. Don't make this very dark, it's just a reference. We're going to erase it. I'm just connecting the top and bottom, but that's not how the tail actually looks. I just need that as a reference line to know what to do next. And here's where it will get just a little bit tricky, but not too bad. Does anybody need more time for the tail? Okay, just give me a thumbs up, you two, when you're ready. Okay. Okay, and we spend all that time drawing that tail and putting that straight line on there, but we're going to alter this line right now. So as we come on here, about where this starts to meet up with this line, we're going to come in here and we're going to make it dip in just a little bit. When we get the center, then we're going to bring it back out. Bring it back up to this one. So it just goes in and out just a little bit. Here's our original line. Don't come way in here. This is not what we want to do. We don't want to have this on here. This one's all crookedy too. But we don't want it to come in here like this. Okay, this is not the tail we're drawing right here. Okay, it just barely comes in and comes back out. In fact, you don't even need to go that far in. You could even make it more shallow and still be all right. We just don't want it to be a straight line. Okay. I'm going to turn my paper now and put the base of the tail on there because it's easy for my hand to go like this. So I'm just going to come right along here, right where it starts to, that diagonal line start, and put a nice curved line right here. That shows where the base of the tail is. On this one, I'm going to put one, but it's all crooked, so it's going to be weird like that. So we don't want weirdness like that. We're going to come back and revisit this tail a little bit in a little while, but the first thing I want to do before I leave it, I'm going to try to figure out where the middle is, basically right on my base. I'm going to put a light line going from the base to the edge of the tail right there. This one's going to be weird because it's off-centered. Now the stuff I'm showing you here on the left, the what not to do, this is all based off drawings I've seen multiple times in class. Okay, we're going to put another diagonal line. We're going to come up a little ways from the bottom here and bring a line that comes down here and goes just below that corner right here. Just a light line there, and then another one doing the same thing up here. And what that is later when we put our rays on the fishtail, it gives us direction so we know which direction to go to fill in between. Okay, that's the purpose of that. I'll put one up here. The one here is going to go weirdness. Okay. Hopefully not too many like this. Does anybody need help with that tail? Is there anybody that does not have that point of completion on there yet? Raise your hand if you're not quite there yet. All right, I don't see any hands, so we're going to go on. So, what? You need a second? Yeah, okay, all right. Just give me a thumbs up so as soon as you're ready. So now we're going to put the dorsal fin on. The dorsal fin is the one that's right on top. If you're swimming and you see a pointy one out in the ocean, that's when you get all panicky because it's probably a shark. Maybe a dolphin, but probably a shark. That's the one we're going to put on next. It's around halfway. So if we look here and here, halfway is about right, right between the two. The first line is at an angle. Fairly steep angle to the right, like that. So it's like you're swimming along and the water current's pushing it back. Now the next one, we're going to go over about an inch or so, and we're going to put an even harder angle on this one. So this one is leaning like this, and then this one's leaning way over. And you can actually make it work by just taking your pencil and lining it up, and then bringing it down, and you'll get that angle pretty close just by rotating it. What's your question, Gwen? The what? Yeah, kind of like that. That's a good analogy, yeah. And then we're going to connect this line with that line. But we could do a straight line, but I'm going to just put a slightly wavy line, just tiny, tiny, teeny, tiny, micro, tiny waves. Let me show that to you up close. See if it'll focus. If you look at that, you can see it's not a straight line, but just little micro, it's just a little texture thing. On our goofed up one, here's what's going to happen. He's going to be like this. And then he's going to be like this because we put it too close, and then it's going to look like that. Okay, this one doesn't have enough space between here and here. This should be actually clear over here. And so if you look down at yours and it's like this, it's like, oh, he has seen this before. Yep. We're going to put one more fin on this, and then we're going to leave fins alone, and we're going to go work on the face for a while. So trout have a weird little fin called an adipose fin. And the adipose fin is on top, and it's kind of a J shape. It's like a hook shape or a J shape right here. And it's where it goes from curving along and then really starts to dip. So it's going to be right in here. I'm just going to put a little curved line and curve it right back into the body. Just like that. It kind of gets hid partly by the black line there, but it just comes right back into the body. It's a weird little fin because it doesn't have any bones or rays in it. It's kind of soft and rubbery. This is what happens if you don't curve it in right. It's not actually connected to the fish, and you got it going way up here. It needs to actually just kind of follow the contour and come right back in and not stick upright. Okay. If you ever catch a trout and you take your finger and you flip it back and forth, it's like a little piece of rubber on the back. It feels really weird. Okay, this poor fish at this point can't breathe. He's like, because he has no gills. So we need to help him out. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn it this way because I need to make a curved line for a gill. Now, if you're left-handed, you would do it the opposite way. You would turn it this way and use your left hand to make, because that's the way your hand will move. But if you're right-handed, we're going to come about where it all comes together, and I'm going to go just a little past it. I'm going to put a nice big curve. It goes near the top, comes all the way around, and goes right to the bottom. Just like that. It needs to have some space between here and here because there's a second gill that goes right in here, so you need to leave room for it. And here's what happens if we get too big and not round. Okay. If you make it too small, it'll be right here. We'll do the second gill too close. So the second gill's kind of neat. It just sort of sits out here by itself, and it's a parallel to the first one that we drew. But it's smaller and shorter. I'm just going to bring it right off that line right there because it makes it easy to do. Now on this one, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make it too small. Like I say, one fish has lots of problems. He's having a bad day. I can't tell you how many fish I've seen that look like this when they get turned in, though. Like a whole heap of them. I'm trying to avoid that today. Okay, here's probably the hardest thing we're going to draw on the whole thing, and it's really not that hard. It's the eye and it's a circle, and it's not a little tiny circle. We're going to come about halfway on this, halfway and above it, and we're going to draw a circle. I'm having trouble drawing circles today, but we're going to get it. Told you it was the hardest thing on here. I'm even struggling today. Can't seem to draw a circle. Got it. All right, so that's the size we need. This is not the size we need. Okay? The other size we don't need is this one. And if I put that little eyeball back in there, he has a real expression going on there. I'll let you see that. He's rather concerned. Okay, I want to show you something. A fish's pupil, it's not a round circle on a fish. Does anybody know what shape it is? We got some pretty good guesses. So it's actually kind of triangular, and that's what makes it kind of weird. So I'll draw it right here magnified so you can see it. So the back end is rounded off, then it comes down where you'd have the point, and you just round it off and come back. You don't want to draw it too big like this, or it just gets, kind of fills up your whole eyeball. It's actually not, it doesn't fill up the whole thing. So I'm going to come around. Okay, I should have plenty of space left around it. Okay. So here's one with it too big, and here's one with it just about right. Some of you are going to sit there and go, man, I can't draw that. So you just draw an angle like this and then just round it off on this end. So if I drew it this way, what candy looks like that? A candy kiss, a candy corn, or a gumdrop. They all look like that. Okay, next thing on the eye, this is a little bit weird. We're going to come across the top and curve a line comes around the back, and then curve a line that comes around the front, but doesn't come all the way back to the eye. It's almost like an eyelid, but it's actually a ridge on a fish. On this one, we didn't even leave ourselves room, but don't draw it like this, okay? I'm going to darken my circle in just a little bit so it's easier to see what I'm doing. Okay. So we have our guy that's having a bad day, and then we got our other fish. This I'm going to make, it's all right if this line's a little darker around it. On this eye right here, I'm going to leave a little shiny spot right here, and then I'm going to color this whole thing in black. Well, good job on the eye, though. There you go. So on this one, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to overemphasize everything. He's going to have this. All right, so there's the difference between the two. There's quite a difference. Okay, back to our good fish. Right here at the bottom, pay attention, right here at the bottom of this gill, we're going to bring a little line that comes out like this, and then we're going to curve some lines that just go like that. So if all that stuff wasn't around it, you would see a gill like this. Here's the bottom of the fish. That's the shape we're trying to do right there. It's just we got that black line in the way. Now this is our practice one. When we do one for real and for grade, we're not going to have this photocopy on our paper, okay? What you're going to have is you'll have these lines just like you had before, but you'll set your drawing paper on top and you'll do these ultra light so that you can erase all that, okay? They're just to get our top and bottom width right and our length right, but we're going to erase all that out of there. So these dark lines won't be there on the final one. I just have it here because it's easier to follow along with it. Now we got to put some more fins on our fish. Did anybody have trouble with these at all, or did everybody get those? Is everybody to this point of completion? All right, no hands? Okay, first fin we're going to put on here, this is called the pectoral fin, okay? And this is caudal fin, and then we'll save the fun one for last. So pectoral fin, we're going to come right here above this line and very near where we drew this, but not touching it, and we're going to put a curved line. And it's fairly long, comes up here and curves down and gets near that straight line. This is not being near it. Okay, that's not near that line. All right, now the bottom of it. We're going to come up here close. We're not going to have them touch. We're going to bring that up, and it's a shorter line, and then we're just going to round it up and bring it right back up to our original line. And it's not like this, okay? What's that? Swoopy thing. On what? Oh, this one doesn't have it. It's got a finer fin. I know what you're talking about now. It's a little finer fin than. Okay, so there is that fin. Now we got to put our next fin on here, and we're going to come a little past halfway. So this will actually line up. If I show you this, and you put your pencil on there straight up and down, where that little corner comes in, mine lines up, this corner and this corner actually line up. The point being, it's going to be in a similar location as the back of our dorsal fin. So I'm going to come straight down, and I'm going to put this coming down like that. So now he looks like your goldfish swimming around the tank that's pooping. But we'll finish this out, and it won't look that way here in a second. This is the caudal fin. Then we're going to put a steeper angle like we did here, but it's closer together. Okay, it's going to come out just like that. So it kind of looks like this fin, except it'd be upside down like that. We're kind of actually making this fin right here. That's a mistake on the top, but on the bottom, that's how we want it to be. Then I'm going to just kind of, instead of a straight line, I'm going to curve this line slightly, just a slight curve, and bring it in. On this dude, we'll put one on him. Okay. Hopefully you can see the difference here, because there is one. Now I'll be real interested to see at the end of class which yours looks like, more like the left or the right. So I'll know in a minute. Okay, right next to this one, we're going to put another one that's the same shape. Just bring it down make that line slightly shorter and let it go right behind. This is not slightly shorter on the other one. This one is way shorter. This one is slightly shorter because they actually have two fins right there. And this one kind of comes up into the body, so we're going to let that go into the body slightly and then erase this line. And the other one goes behind the body, so you don't need to erase anything on it. On this one, we'll bring it in there. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to forget to erase that line because that's the number one problem. Okay, last fin. Here's our last fin we're going to put on here. And this one is called the anal fin. So most of you will remember that. Because the anal opening, little biology lesson, is right here. Okay, right in front of it. It's not behind it, it's right in front of it. It's between this fin and this fin. We're not going to draw that opening, we're just drawing the fin. Because you can't see the opening from the side. Okay, so we're moving away. We're not going to put it too close to the tail, not too close to this fin. This one comes down at an angle. It's a very straight line, but it's at a diagonal. Now it really looks like it's pooping. And then this next one, it's similar to this fin that we drew on top because you got to put some space between it. And we're going to angle it a harder angle. And then that little micro wavy line I put on the top fin, I'm going to put on that one. And I mean, it's so micro tiny you can't even hardly see that I did anything on there, okay? On this guy, I'm going to draw it just like I've seen it drawn in the past. Okay. Okay, now that we've created this masterpiece up here, hopefully yours looks a little more like this one. That's what we're hoping for. Now we're going to do some fin work, and this is where we got to be careful. I'm probably not going to do much on this one anymore. He served his purpose. So pay close attention. Talking needs to stop. You need to be looking at what we're doing now. Okay, thank you. Either one. All right, so what we need to do now is we have this line here and this line here. I'm going to divide it in half. And then I'm going to divide that in half again. It's a light line, parallel line. And then this one, notice that they're starting to lean more and more as they go across. You don't want to draw them all the exact same angle. They start to lean more as they get down this way. We're just putting a few on there. It's just for direction. I'm going to come down here at the bottom fin and do the same thing. Put one right here. One right here. And then the angle changes slightly, and I'll put one right there. Actually, I don't even have it changed enough. I got to put that at more of an angle. Right there like that. So we got that on top and on bottom. We're going to put a whole lot more in here in just a minute. We're just getting ourselves started. Okay, for this fin, we're going to go right out of the middle and just follow it on around, just like that. And then another one that comes right in here and goes between it. And another one that goes between that. So we're just separating stuff out. I don't know if you can see that very well or not. I'll move it up closer so you can see it. And on this one, it's going to be a little different. I'm going to follow from right here at the base, and I'm going to follow that upper line. I'm going to bring another one, kind of starts right at the line, and another one curves down this way. These are all curved, curved, curved. These are not straight lines. These curve. I'll hold that up close so you can see how much it curves. And all these are is guidelines. That's all they are, is guidelines for what we're going to do. We're going to leave them on there, but we're going to have to add a whole lot more. So we'll move over and we'll do the fin that has the most lines. Which one is that? Okay, here's one thing that people forget. This is a fin, this is a fin, this is a fin, that's a fin, that's a fin. So is that little goofy thing there. So is the tail. It's the tail fin. Okay, that's our biggest one. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to divide again what I've already done on here. Not touching that center line though, I'm just dividing this stuff in half again. And here's where it gets a little tricky. We're going to just keep dividing in half as best we can. I'm going to put another line in there, divides those two. And what I don't want is I don't really want them touching at the base of the tail. I want a little separation. I'm just keep dividing and dividing and dividing. Okay, so when I finish with that, I got a whole bunch of lines there. And now I'm going to just bring in some that are shorter. It's a texture thing. I'm going to come from the outer edge of the tail and bring them part way down, just like that. I'm not going to bring it all the way to the base. I'm just splitting it up more now. But I don't need to draw them all the way down to the base. It's a texture. Now we're just showing that it has rays and lots of them. That one got a little goofed up. We'll fix it. So that when we finish, he's got a whole bunch of rays on his tail. Be careful with those. Draw those with intention. Draw them carefully and don't draw them randomly. No, none of those lines should touch. They shouldn't cross and they shouldn't touch anywhere. And I need to show the other problem we have with tails. I forgot about it. Here is a major problem that we have with tails. I've just shown you how it should look, but if anybody did this, you're going to have problems. Okay, that is not what we drew. We don't have a dead Christmas tree in here. You know, dead Christmas tree right there. That's not what we drew. It should look more like a ruffled potato chip than a dead Christmas tree. And I show you this, but I guarantee that when we draw these on our own, I'm going to come over and I'm going to see somebody's that looks something like this. Because you draw that straight line, and then for whatever reason your brain says, oh, we got to put them all off of that. No, that's not where they come from. They come from the base and go out. They don't radiate out from this line right here. Okay, just like what we did with this fin, that's what we're going to do up here. We're going to divide these in half. Like I said, draw this with intention and very carefully, just like that, very carefully. And then in between each one, we are going to bring a little shorter line that comes down from the top and then just fades out as it moves down towards the body. I don't need it to go all the way down to the body. Now, as we get shorter here, if it goes down and touches the body, that's fine. These are much shorter. You know, it's a shorter distance from here to here, and that's fine if it happens there. But if I hold that up close, you can see most of them do not. And they don't touch and they don't cross. Okay? That's the most important thing, is you don't have them touching and crossing as you're drawing. If you got a dull pencil, you're going to have a really hard time doing this because we're making fine points. We're getting near the finish line here. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting near. Tomorrow we'll shade it in, put dots on it, and it's going to look awesome. Today, just some fine details on fins. All right, what we did here, of course, we're going to do right down here at the bottom. So a lot of this is just repetition in design, doing the same thing over and over again. So just slight variations. Same thing here. We're going to put a little line between them. Making sure we're careful that they don't touch the line on either side. That one's finished. And then this little one right here, we just put a few short lines in between, in between, in between, in between. And it's the same thing on all the fins, just a little bit going in between. Okay, now we have all our rays on our fins, and that's a good thing. Done. Sophie, you got all those rays on those fins, or you're not? You got them all done? Okay. Okay, once you have that, if you have that, you've got everything on there to this point of completion on there, and hopefully you do, and hopefully you got your first and last name on your paper, then go ahead and put it on the back table and put your chairs up on the tabletop.